Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie, Esther here, and I'm super excited to talk about the new chapter of Dead by Daylight, Candyman.
It's not Candyman.
What?
It's not Candyman.
What do you mean?
It's not Candyman.
Why do you keep saying that?
It's not Candyman.
Can you stop saying that, please?
Don't say that.
It's not Candyman.
Well, you can't say we didn't warn him. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie, Esther here, and Scott, what are you doing? You can't say Candyman's name 5 times. That's a rookie mistake. Alright, welcome everybody. And before you go running off to Scott and saying, Scott, did you see what Paulie did to you in his video? Like, Scott was the first person to see that, and he gave his blessing as a meme, so there's that. So, I know y'all have been waiting on me for a couple of weeks now to come back with this second video about Candyman, talking about his power, what it could be, the map, and who a corresponding survivor would be. But we had some revelations since then. Namely, it was Scott with that clip, It's Not Candyman. And I didn't really know what to make of it at the time, because a lot of people sent me that clip where he said it's not Candyman, and I thought, wow, he sounds so confident. I wonder why he sounds so sure it's not. And then, I had another person say, so you saw what Scott said? And I was like, yeah, I saw the not Candyman clip. But how does he know? And they were like, wait a minute, you didn't watch the whole thing? I said, what do you mean the whole thing? He's like, oh, you need to keep watching on that stream and see what else he said. He explains it all. And I'm like, really? So I went back and watched it. First, I want to take a moment to do a quick promo about Incent. Incent is a company that I'm an ambassador for, and they give my viewers free cryptocurrency for watching me with redeemable code drops that appear on the screen during my live streams. I'm dropping this persistent code here in this video for you to redeem, and all you have to do is go to get.incent.com and enter the code displayed here on screen, and you'll be rewarded with free cryptocurrency. It's as simple as that. Now, if you're a streamer on any platform who wants to reward your own viewers with some free cryptocurrency, you can use my referral code here on the screen, which will award both of us with some Incent when you become a verified streamer. Let's get back to the video. And so I took their advice and I went to Scott's VOD on his Twitch channel, and I watched further into the stream. And in fact, I even made notes and wrote down a transcript of what was said, because I thought there was a lot of very interesting information that I'm going to share with you here now. We're going to put the transcript on the screen. No reading ahead. Here we go. Let's see what we got. So, it starts out with this part that you're already familiar with. The chat asks, do you buy any of the Candyman hype? And Scott replies, it's not Candyman, very confidently. And so the chat says, well, who is it then? They're trying to get him to just say who it is. And so then he responds sarcastically saying, oh, okay, well, let me just tell you. And then he says, I don't know. I've known the last 4 killers. So yeah, no, I don't know this one somehow. So he's just like being sarcastic saying, I've known the last 4 killers. So why would you think that I don't know the identity of this next killer coming for chapter 16? And that's fair. So then chat tries to ply him for more information by asking, can you confidently say it's not Pinhead? Because he had so very confidently said that it was not Candyman. So they wanted him to, remark on other licensed properties. And so then he replies with, I can't say anything because you'll just figure stuff out by elimination. And no, it's not Candyman because that's really dumb. You don't need insider info to know that it's not him. Whoa, whoa, whoa there, Scott. Candyman is effing dumb. I know I always say that, if everybody liked the same thing, we wouldn't need menus in restaurants, but that seems a little harsh. I have a special spot in my heart for Candyman, so that hurts me, Scott. Don't ever talk to me or my son Candyman ever again. No, I'm just kidding. But, I actually know people who, before Ghostface came out, that they in droves turned out and said, I don't want Ghostface in Dead by Daylight because that character's a joke. I don't want to see it in Dead by Daylight. And we had another camp of people who had a really very strong love and affinity for Ghostface, and they were so happy when Ghostface came to Dead by Daylight. So to each their own. And, you know, Scott, you could have your opinion about Candyman being dumb too, but here, okay. Anyway, so on this point, the most important thing in this sentence here for him to say, I can't say anything because you'll just figure stuff out by elimination. Doesn't that statement right there imply that it is, even if it isn't Candyman, that it is another licensed character? He's implying here that if he allowed people to continue to make guesses, that it could be figured out by the process of elimination. Now, if it's an original character, if it's an original killer, that can't be figured out by the process of elimination because there are an infinite amount of possibilities. But with a licensed character, there are only so many different horror characters out there that it could be that you would have to put a stop to people making other guesses because it could therefore be figured out by process of elimination. So that, to me, this statement by itself seems to imply that the next killer is most certainly a license. You follow me? Okay, so then the chat goes on to ask, well, didn't the Gunslinger just literally come out? And Scott says, yeah, but they work on 3 killers in advance, and I knew about the Gunslinger, who was called the Gunslinger, 4 months ago. We're going to come back to this point about the Gunslinger previously having a different codename, and does that mean anything? But let's carry on. And so then the chat asks, he's reading it, right? So I'm just like transcribing what he reads. So he says, can you tell me if it's power? And then it trails off. He doesn't finish reading what they asked. And then he says, I have no idea what their power is. I just know what it is. So now this also to me seems to back up my theory that it is a licensed character no matter what, because if he only knew the code name of an original character, it wouldn't mean anything to him. If you had never seen Dead by Daylight before, and I told you, oh yeah, they have this killer called the Spirit, without giving you any information, what does that really mean to you? Or the nurse, or the doctor, or the clown. We have these very generic terms used for these killers that don't really tell you much of anything about what they do. So to me, when he says, I have no idea what their power is, I just know what it is, that seems to also resonate with me, that it is a license and that it's a name, like as if they say to him, for example, Xenomorph is the next killer. Well, then he has an idea in his mind what the next killer is based on that, because he has seen the character as a licensed property in other media, so he's familiar with the character rather than if it's just a generic term used for an original. You follow me? All right. So then the chat goes on to ask, how do you have insider information if you're not a fog whisperer? And Scott says, first of all, fog whisperers don't get told anything. It's just about who they, meaning Behavior, Dead by Daylight Studios in Montreal, actually invite to their headquarters. So I can confirm this. I'm a fog whisperer myself. They don't let me in on anything. I don't have insider information about what the next character is that's coming out. They don't tell me any of that stuff. That's all internal. But obviously people who have been to the studios in Montreal have signed more stringent non-disclosure agreements and have been made privy to things that are being worked on in-house. So that seems to imply that that's where the information is coming from. And then he goes on, the chat says, do you have chest hair? I absolutely do not. Okay, I think I transcribed too far. I went a little bit too far, but anyway. Scott, I also don't have chest hair. I think it's my Filipino grandfather, but, you know, no shame in your game. There's nothing wrong with not having chest hair, everybody, okay? All right, so, yeah, let's talk about this stuff. So I'm going to leave a link here in the description and in the top comment that you can go and watch the VOD for yourself at that timestamp and just see if, you know, I'm reading anything that isn't there or if I'm putting tone where it is. And I think that's a pretty accurate depiction of what was said. Now, whether you think that my theory on top of that is correct or not, that's up for interpretation. But I think that's a pretty accurate description of the words that were said on that stream. And I'm going to be honest, when I saw this, it was pretty demoralizing for me because I was very confident that it was Candyman. And I don't think that Scott's being disingenuous here. I think that he's being very honest. I don't think that he's trying to pull the wool over the eyes of his chat. I think he's being very honest with everything that he said here, and he makes a compelling case that he has had insider knowledge and has continued to have insider knowledge about what was going on, and he dismisses Candyman very handily. Now, do I think that means that we're never going to see Candyman? No, I think it's possible that Candyman might be chapter 17 and we might be getting something else as a license for chapter 16. I just really don't see how Dead by Daylight wouldn't want this Candyman property in their stable. I think the only thing that would be holding Dead by Daylight back from putting Candyman in Dead by Daylight would be that Universal doesn't want to do it. I would think it would be the license holder holding it back, not Dead by Daylight. This was expected to be an epic horror film this summer. It's now pushed back to September because of quarantine. But this was expected to be a big blockbuster film. And I heard that Tony Todd has signed on for 3 of these. They intend to reboot this entire franchise. Jordan Peele is such a hot name in Hollywood right now in this genre. I just really can't see why you wouldn't want to work with the Candyman people if you are able. Like 3 films down the pipe, this would be a huge get for them. So I think the only thing would be holding them back would be the license holder. So perhaps it isn't chapter 16. Perhaps Scott's right. Perhaps it's put down the road to, let's say, chapter 17. There's definitely a lot of weird stuff going on with Tony Todd as far as those Twitter follows. Like, he followed Candyman movie and Dead by Daylight back to back on his Twitter. He has since followed Behavior Interactive, and he follows Monto. He follows me. Like, there's a lot of Dead by Daylight related accounts that he's following. So either there's something happening or the man really wants to work with Dead by Daylight. I don't know what else it could be. And we just had this Texas Frightmare virtual convention on the weekend, and they, obviously they can't have a gathering, so they had to cancel the Texas Frightmare. So instead they did it virtually on the internet, live streamed it. Tony Todd was one of the guests. I'm going to show you this little snippet from his 10-minute interview, and we'll let it speak for itself.
So I love your voice, man. You've done a lot of voice work over the years too, and
yeah, and I'm doing in the last year. I think we got 3 new series on Netflix. I can't mention the names, but they'll be dropping soon, and a couple of video games. And I did a pilot for Adult Swim, one of my favorite characters ever. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
And that's something you can't talk about either, huh?
No, I'm sorry.
There's a lot
We just spent this whole moment just telling you I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it.
It's so amazing, though. It's great that you have so much lined up.
Yeah.
That means we've got a lot of Tony Todd coming our way.
Yeah, well, God willing. But we could do the whole interview just saying I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it.
So, you did voice work for 2 video games that you can't talk about. Anything I might have heard of? I don't know, right? That's something. Obviously, it doesn't mean... Tony Todd has an amazing voice, and he can be in anything. He can get, voiceover work at the drop of a hat. It isn't difficult for him to do. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's Dead by Daylight, but it could be. So as I said, I know I had promised you this further in-depth look at Candyman and what the chapter for him could look like, but it seems like if Scott's information is to be relied upon, that isn't happening. So as much as I would like to talk about, like, Be My Victim power and transporting across the map through mirrors and who the corresponding survivor could be, would it be Helen? Like what the map location would be Cabrini Green. I think we need to put a pin in that until we get some more information about something, because Scott's information just seems like it's so compelling. So what else could it be? I want to circle back to this point where he talks about how the Deathslinger was originally called the Gunslinger. So before the Chains of Hate public test build ever started, before we knew the identity of the Chapter 15 killer, one of these leaked websites had updated their list of killers, and they added the Gunslinger to the list. This was the first we had ever heard of a code name for the new killer. And now we have Scott backing up this information that killer indeed was called the Gunslinger at one point 4 months ago. But upon release, they came out with the Caleb Quinn as the code name of the Deathslinger. Now, why would you do this? Let's just take a moment and analyze that. And I'm going to show you this clip here from a dev stream.
And so I'm also a huge fan of The Dark Tower and of Cowboy in general.
Are we supposed to talk about this? Because I'm a huge fan too.
I think we can say
so,
it. We've said it before.
But this is not the Gunslinger.
No, absolutely not.
Nothing
to
do?
Like everything in the realm of Western cowboys is very alluring to me. It's really good. So I always wanted to do that.
So there in that clip, they're talking about how the concept for the Deathslinger and the Chains of Hate for Dead by Daylight was born, and they refer back to their love of Westerns and Stephen King's book series, The Dark Tower, in which there is a character named the Gunslinger. Now, the Gunslinger is a word that's been around for 100 years. Stephen King does not own it. And as I said, all of the killer names that are original in Dead by Daylight are very generic. We have the Spirit, the Nurse, the Doctor, the Clown, etc., etc. The Hillbilly. They're all very generic terms. The Gunslinger is a word that Stephen King doesn't own, and Deathslinger doesn't really roll off the tongue, and it is a made-up word. It doesn't even exist. It's a word that they made up for this character. So, we have seen that internally, Scott says that the code name for the killer was at one point called the Gunslinger, and the leak on the website also confirms that it was called the Gunslinger. So why would you change from this? Gunslinger is a word that nobody owns. It's been around for 100 years. Why would you change this word to Deathslinger, a word that is very awkward and doesn't exist? Now, the only thing I can think of is that either you have a deal with Stephen King, or you want to deal with Stephen King, and you don't want any smack of impropriety that you are stepping on the toes of any of his other existing characters by naming a character after a character in one of his books. So if you're trying to, does this put us back on the train of a potential Stephen King collab in the future? Maybe, or maybe they just want it and they want to make sure that they don't mess anything up. So if you're trying to get Jack Torrance from The Shining or Pennywise, etc., you don't want to come to him or his people and they go, well, wait a minute, you have a character in your game that's called the Gunslinger, and that's kind of like Stephen King's thing, so we're not cool with that. That's the only thing that makes sense to me on why you would specifically go out of your way to avoid calling your character this. Because you didn't get a better name, and the word is just public domain. No one owns it. So why on earth would you avoid Gunslinger when it sounds better? And even for like alternate words, why wouldn't you call him the Engineer or the Cowboy or something? I don't know. Deathslinger is just a really awkward name for me. But let's just focus on asking yourself, why would they change the name from Gunslinger? And does it mean anything? So, what is it going to be for Chapter 16? I really don't know. I was very confident that it was going to be Candyman, but Scott makes such a compelling argument against it. It's hard for me to bet against him when he seems to have insider information. I just have to take him at his word that it isn't Candyman for Chapter 16. Maybe Candyman is further down the road in Chapter 17, but I do believe it is going to be a license of some sort for Chapter 16. Does this whole, oh no, the Gunslinger is a taboo word, we can't say that around here, does that mean that they are going to work with Stephen King on something for Chapter 16? Ooh, I hope so. I really hope so. But we won't have that long to wait. I think we're between 3 and 4 weeks out from getting a public test build for the next chapter, so stay tuned. But what do you think? Do you think Scott makes as compelling an argument against Candyman as I do? Do you think that it is a license based on what I read in the transcript there? Am I reading too much in between the lines? Do we need the tinfoil hat, or what's going on there? And do you think that there is anything to this change of the killer name from Gunslinger to Deathslinger? Does that mean anything? Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of each other in the fog, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.